Welcome. This is another topic we'll explore in greater depth in a future video. It's fairly complex, but it's important to address. As mentioned earlier, entry into the Senate required election to a public political office. These offices had to be attained in a specific order through a detailed hierarchy known as the Cursus Honorum. The term is usually translated as the course of honors, or more accurately, the race of offices. Each of these positions was held for a brief term of just 1 year. The purpose of these one-year terms was to prevent any individual from becoming too entrenched in power or challenging the authority of the Senate. Republican Rome lived in constant fear of the rise of another king. Notably, this logic mirrors the reasoning behind the Interrex's 5-day term during the monarchy, both designed to limit personal power through extremely short periods in office. So what exactly did officials do during their single year in office? To answer that, let's briefly walk through the Cursus Honorum. Entry into the Senate required election to the office of Quaestor, a position for which candidates were eligible only after reaching the age of 30. In many respects, quaestors functioned as apprentices to Rome's senior power holders. Their duties included assisting governors with tax collection, serving as quartermasters for military commanders, and overseeing the state treasury in the city of Rome. Once a quaestor's one-year term ended, he was formally admitted into the Senate. The next step was the office of Aedile. The exact age requirement is somewhat unclear, but it generally fell in the mid-30s. Aediles were tasked with overseeing public infrastructure, most notably temples and aqueducts, managing the city's food supply, and, most crucially for political advancement, organizing public festivals and games. This final responsibility made the Aediles especially popular with the lower classes. The office of Aedile occupied a unique position within the Cursus Honorum, with one foot both inside and outside the traditional career path. It stood partly outside because candidates were not always required to have served as quaestors first, and even quaestors themselves could choose to bypass this office entirely. At the same time, the position remained firmly within the Cursus Honorum due to its prestige and influence. It was an excellent platform for gaining public recognition and was officially acknowledged by the Senate as a legitimate magistracy. Still, skipping the office carried no stigma, making it symbolically distinct from the other posts in the sequence. Unlike the rest, Aediles were granted none of the traditional symbols of authority inherited from the monarchical period. Even the lower-ranking quaestors received certain ceremonial honors. We can explore the details of these symbols later, as they are quite fascinating in their own right. Beyond this step came the truly influential offices. Praetors could be elected at around the age of 39 and were primarily responsible for serving as judges, a role that involved interpreting and administering Roman law. This was an immense responsibility and one that had once belonged to the kings themselves. Praetors also held the authority to summon meetings of the Senate and to shape the boundaries of debate. Unlike the earlier offices, this gave them real power to advance a legislative agenda. In this way, they could affect state affairs in ways that quaestors could scarcely imagine. In addition, and of great importance, praetors possessed the authority to command legions, answering only to the consuls in this capacity. Achieving the office of consul, typically around the age of 42, represented the highest honor and ultimate goal of Roman political life. Consuls shared several key powers with praetors, including the authority to convene the Senate, shape the limits of debate, present legislation to the popular assemblies, and command legions. However, the consulship was far more than a collection of powers. It represented the pinnacle of a Roman's public career. Holding the office offered a form of immortality. Long after a consul's death, his descendants continued to honor his achievement as proof of the family's enduring prestige. The Romans did not number years as we do today, but instead identified them by the names of the serving consuls. Rather than saying someone was born in the year 690 after the founding of Rome, a Roman would say he was born during the consulship of Cicero and Antonius. In this way, consuls both shaped and defined history itself, since even events unrelated to them were forever dated by the year of their office. In practice, the consuls functioned as Rome's heads of state. They held this position because they outranked all other magistrates and possessed the authority to veto their actions unilaterally. Little of consequence could occur without their consent. In times of war, consuls also directed Rome's military efforts. They exercised supreme command over Roman forces across all territories and governed nearly every aspect of Roman life that fell within their reach. Consuls additionally held certain religious responsibilities, though these were complex and somewhat convoluted and best addressed separately at another time. With that, we have completed an overview of the Cursus Honorum. While many other offices interacted closely with those discussed here, they were generally peripheral and not part of the standard political career path. The censorship, for instance, was an unusual office with limited authority, typically granted to senior statesmen every 5 years. The tribunate of the plebs, by contrast, was a powerful yet deeply contradictory institution, so perplexing that even the Romans themselves struggled to fully explain it. None of the standard magistrates I've described would even have been eligible for such positions. Another example is the Pontifex Maximus, an elected office held for life that carried immense prestige, but arguably very little direct political power. We'll return to these roles in due course, but for now, this provides a solid foundational framework. Next time, we'll continue our examination of the Roman Senate by exploring how it functioned in everyday practice, along with some of its more unusual traditions. Thanks for watching.